আপনি সালমান আপনি এমসিকে প্যানেলিস্ট করেন ওটা আমি নাসিরটা আমি করি হ্যাঁ এমসিকে আমি আছে আমি যদি বলছি কি করব আচ্ছা অ্যাকসেপ্ট করে আচ্ছা জয়েন করে
Hello all, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Dr. Zubair, Amin, welcome. Audible? No, it's fine.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear, sir.
Clear. Dr. Zubair, Amin, can you hear me? Our keynote speaker. I don't know. ওখানে কি
Hello.
is it clear or no? A message দিতে হবে.
Sir, message দিয়েছি। Let me check. সালমান একটু চেক করেন তো স্যারের।
স্ক্রিপ্টটা
Hello, Zubair, Amin, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yes, sir. The session will start soon, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on wherever you're located. Welcome to the fourth plenary session of APAN53. In this session, we will have a presentation on tomorrow's teachers, how can we remain relevant in a connected world. The mode of pedagogy, as we all know, has changed significantly in recent times, especially when the pandemic jolted the world. The devastating pandemic resulted in global lockdown and in the process triggered the initiation of online education as the only way to continue the academic learning process. Under the changed mode of pedagogy, what should be the role of teachers certainly becomes the pivotal question to search answers for. The paper on tomorrow's teachers, how can we remain relevant in a connected world, is going to be presented by Professor Dr. Zubair Amin, a renowned physician. He's serving as Associate Professor in the National University of Singapore. The session will be chaired by Professor Dr. Mohammed Sajid Hussein, Honorable Member, University Grants Commission of Bangladesh. Let me give a brief introduction of Professor Dr. Sajid Hussein. Dr. Mohammed Sajid Hussein is a distinguished professor, researcher, academic teaching advisor with extensive experience in ICT sector and a writer. Currently, he's working as a full-time member of University Grants Commission of Bangladesh. He's also a director of the Board of Directors of Bangladesh Satellite Company Limited, BSCL. His research interest includes quantum computing, nanotechnology, software engineering, Internet of Things (IoT), artificial intelligence, robotics, etc. Based on his research findings, more than 50 papers have been published in peer-reviewed international journals and conference proceedings. His book on the field of science and technology, titled Odrisho Projukti, Invisible Technology, caught readers' attention since its availability in 2018. His another widely discussed book, titled Odomo Bangladesh, Indomitable Bangladesh, was published in September 2020. Let me brief the structure of the session. At the beginning of the session, once the chair finishes introducing the speaker, there will be 30 minutes presentation from the speaker. The floor will be then open to audience to ask questions for the speaker to answer. The question may be asked using Zoom question and answer for the chair to collect your question to forward it to the speaker, or you may raise your hand for the chair to allow you to ask the question by yourself. The question and answering session will be of 15 minutes duration. Finally, the chair will wrap up the session with his concluding remarks. With that note, I'm going to hand over the microphone to Honorable Chair to conduct the session. Professor Dr. Mohammed Sajid Hussein, the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's a nice introduction. So, welcome you all. Assalamu alaikum, namaskar, adab, and also good day. Our today's keynote speaker, Dr. Zubair Amin. Dr. Amin is an associate professor in the Department of Pediatrics in Yang Lin School of Medicine, National University of Singapore. He is also the head of the Department of Neonatology and senior consultant at the National University Hospital, Singapore. He was assistant dean for education and deputy head of medical education unit at the Yang Lin School of Medicine. Dr. Amin completed his undergraduate education from Dhaka Medical College. He later completed his residency and fellowship training in pediatrics from University of Illinois at Chicago. Dr. Amin has master's in health professional education from University of Illinois at Chicago, USA. His interests in medical education are in faculty development, assessment, and international medical education. He is the lead author of several books, Basic in Medical Education, An Essential Guide to Developing, Implementing, and Evaluating Objective Structure, Clinical Examination, Profiles of Asian Medical Schools, Part 1, Southeast Asia, and a practical guide on student assessment. He was one of the editors of Medical Education Online and Anatomical Science Educators. He has over 50 publications in peer-reviewed journals. He has conducted faculty development program in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Iran, Jordan, Japan, Sri Lanka, South Korea, Taiwan, Saudi Arabia, the Netherlands, and Italy. Today, we all know that tomorrow's teachers, how can we remain relevant in a connected world? This is a very most relevant things in this time of pandemic. So I believe, and our experienced keynote speaker will deliver his speech, his presentation, which will enrich our academia, especially in this such critical time, and his extensive experience will help our audience and researchers and educationists. We believe it will help, and it will give our conference a very good momentum for tomorrow's teachers. Thank you all, and I welcome Professor Dr. Amin to deliver your presentation, and we will hope that our audience, our researchers who will joining home and abroad and joining online all over the world, hopefully they will be benefited. And if they have questions, as our moderator told, is welcome for questions and answer. Let's start. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Sajid Hossain. It's for a very, very kind introduction. I'm actually sitting in my clinic, and so you may hear a baby crying next to the room. So please pardon me. And this is only possible because of that, technological miracle. So every opportunity, that we have now, it stems from the, the struggle that we faced in the last, maybe 2-3 years. So let's see. And again, welcome everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And I hope that technology will do its justice. So let's start with the sharing the screen. Can you see my screen properly?
Yes, sir, please.
Thank you, sir. So this is actually, a topic that I have been thinking for long, that we are passionately a teacher, and then how we can remain relevant in the connected world. When I talk to my daughter, my son, my students, I realize that there is a generational gap. And the notion of this generational gap is actually something not new. It has been there from the era of the Socrates. So, but the pace of change that's taking place now is, very, very fast. And we need to be prepared, to serve our society, serve our students in the next decades to come. So I'll start with this, Chinese word of crisis, and some of you may know that it's actually made up of two independent characters. One is a danger, another one is an opportunity. What does it mean actually for us? That, in every danger, there will be an opportunity for us. When there is a crisis, it has a dual connotations. If we don't prepare, then we face danger. But on the other hand, if we prepare ourselves, it will create opportunity. So the COVID crisis that's happened in the globally, we are almost like at the 2.5 years into it. It also created some incredible opportunity for us to embark on new journeys. Now, if we are to look at the future, there are many, many changes that will be going to take place. Some are known to us, some may not be known to anyone. But what we know for sure that's going to happen, there will be incredible, explosion of aging population. There is an explosion of knowledge. It says that in medical science, every 3.5 months, the amount of knowledge doubles. There are emergence of new technology, not only on the educational technologies, but also other form of technology. Couple of that, there's a rising educational cost. I did my medical studies in Bangladesh back in those days, about two decades ago. We spent so little for our own education. Now that cost has ballooned up to enormous number. We conducted a study in India to understand how much the money a student spend in undergraduate and the postgraduate, and you'd be surprised that it can reach up to $500,000. There is an emergence of new diseases. There is an increasing public as well as students' expectation of what we do. There's a new learning technology. There's also, coupled with that, there's a challenges to ethics and the professionalism. How we behave is very, very much under radar, and you can open up a newspaper. Not a single day will go by when there are when you don't see a questions raised about the ethics and the professionalism of the teacher or the institute. And of course, there's a new generation of learner that we all know about. So I will just show some slides to illustrate the point that population about age 65, and you can see this is from the developing world. This is not a developed world. Developed world already facing this epidemics of the elderly population, explosion of elderly population. And that's actually a good thing because people are living longer, our healthcares are improving, people have more access to good health and education. Now, also you can look at this, that the elderly dependency is actually rising fast. Previously, there used to be more younger population, and then those will support the elderly. Now, the number of the elderly and the younger population that can support can reach about 1-to-1, and some countries actually reversing. So here is that some of the disease pattern. Again, this is actually coming from the developing world, not from the developed world. And this is published in in Lancet. You can look at that, the disability adjusted life year. The main one is actually unipolar major depression, a disease that we don't teach in medical school to that extent, road traffic extent. And some of those are known to us, like ischemic heart disease, the chronic COPD, related to smoking, cerebrovascular accident, and so on. So what I wanted to point out is that the demographics is changing, the disease pattern is changing, and this trend is also present in other disciplines, not only unique to medical education or health profession education. So the millennial generation, they learn differently. And we have our own kids, we have our grandchildren, nieces and nephews, and we know how different they are. So there are certain ways that we can look at them, but these are some simplistic way that doing is more important for them than knowing. So knowledge is no longer perceived to be the ultimate goal. The half-life of information is so short, results and action are considered more important than accumulation of fact. Learning is more closely resembles to Nintendo than logic. So, and if you play Nintendo, you know that it's actually coming from the trial and error. So that you practice, you make a mistake, you learn from that again. And the losing is the fastest way of mastering a game because losing represents learning. A very powerful word, actually. There is a zero tolerance for delays, and we know that when we play with our handphone, if the Google search doesn't give up a result within a few seconds, we change the parameter. So similarly, in terms of education, the millennials have raised in a just-in-time service-oriented culture. They expect and demand quick turnaround time in today's 24/7 culture and do not expect delay. And the consumers and the creators are blurring. You can actually open up, there are a number of journals that has come up in the last 5 years is phenomenal. We did a study actually to look at the stress among the students. And to our surprise, we realized that this is actually from Saudi Arabia, where I collaborate with that. And this is from the medical students. You would see that severe stress level is actually 20%. And then if you look at no stress, it's only about 40%, meaning that 2/3 of the medical students are under tremendous stress. Now, I didn't show this slide in this, but what we also found out that stress level is omnipresent, whether it's a male or female student, or whether it's a good student versus a struggling student. So not that I'm doing well in my academics doesn't mean that I'm not under stress. So this is also important for us to know that students that we're dealing with, they are at high risk of stress, depression, and anxiety. So there is another another perspective to it. And this was published in the middle of the pandemic, I think early part of the pandemic, in the Daily Star. And you can see a village, beautiful village from Bangladesh, where there's a girl who is doing her own study in a solitary environment using the handphone. So this I wouldn't have dreamed about it even 5 years back, that a girl and a student can learn through internet. So the new technologies are coming. So how do we manage this adoption of the new technology? So we have to evaluate innovation based on its relative advantage. So what does this say? A blended learning, we talk about the blended learning, mixture of face-to-face and the technology-based education. What does this blended learning offer relative to the classroom-based teaching? How much of it is actually compatible with the pre-existing system? How complex it is, how difficult it is to learn for the learners as well as for the teacher. Have we actually tested this technology in our own context? What are the potentials for reinvention? Can we reinvent the original technology to suit our needs? What are the observed effects? The innovators are the early adopters, and innovators and early adopters, what they went through when they are experimenting with this new technology. So these are some of the questions that as a teacher, as academics, we need to ask before adopting a new technology. What are the, what we know also in the higher education and digital age, we have to think really that what can we offer to the students that online e-learning platform cannot deliver? How can we harness the power of technology? How would we drive the education in the area of rapid development of technology? When we talk about the technology, I'm very cognizant of the fact that even a ballpoint that I use nowadays, actually, it took probably years and decades to produce that. So the technology can come from many different forms, not only the digital, it could be non-digital technology. And how can we drive our education using this technology judiciously? So what are the newer competency that we need among our teachers? So we can look at it two different perspectives. We can add value to our existing practice, and we can also broaden our range of competency that we have as a teacher. So this comes from the Scottish doctor from University of Dundee, where it was actually started. And you can look at the outer circle, there are different micro competency like learning in the medical informatics, patient management, patient investigation, the clinical skill, communication, practical procedures. Then you have the personal development and role of the doctor within the health services. But then again, we can look into that attitude, ethical professionalism, decision-making, and understanding the basic social and the clinical science, the underlying principles. So we can look at all of those 12 competency as a concentric circle, what the doctors is able to do, how we approach our practice, and how we are as a professionals. So we can actually transpose this model to a teacher's competency. What we as a teacher are able to do, that's our technical competency, how we as teacher approach our practice. So this is our own learning and approach, the approach to the learning and the scholarship, and how we are as a professional. So this is actually, we can model our newer competency based on that. And as I said, that what teachers are able to do, how teachers approach their teaching, and teachers as a professional. So when you look at a little bit more into it, we can actually look into the knowledge competency as well as a skill, and how teachers approach the teaching. It could be the scientific underpinning of teaching and learning, and understanding the context of practice, be it an engineer, an architect, an economist. We need to understand the context of practice. for us, it's important to understand the demographics. It is important to understand the disease pattern. For economists also needs to understand that how society behaves in a particular way. And the teachers as a professional, the scholarship and the research. So, I mean, from now on, I'll talk about a little bit on the medical education, health professional education side, but you can relate to it that in the knowledge competency, we all know there's a health, aging, mental health, patient safety, preventive medicine, emerging infectious diseases, the genetics, epigenetics, and genomics, and many others. So nowadays, we cannot satisfy our student just talking about what we learned 10 years, 20 years back. We need to constantly keep learning about the newer knowledge that's emerging and coming to us. Nowadays, the patient comes to us with a diagnosis. Actually, he will walk into my clinic and say that, doctors, I think I have this. So we need to keep ourselves abreast with this knowledge. So what are the prerequisites for that? We need to have a higher level of integration. We need to have a continuous faculty development, updating our knowledge, and radical change in the educational planning and delivery. So if you look at the integration model of teaching, I mean, previously we used to live in this area where we used to teach in isolation, little bit of awareness, little bit of harmonization. But now we have to talk about transdisciplinary approach, interdisciplinary approach, and multidisciplinary approach. And it could be like, science, engineering, public health, epidemiology, and, interprofessionally like medical, nursing, allied health, pharmacy, and also medical students being our partner. Technical competency, these are the past paradigm when we could be satisfied if we could deliver an effective lecture, teaching at the bedside, creating a good questions, and developing a module, and providing effective feedback. But the technical competency are insufficient by itself, and they are not, by themselves, they are not enough to actually meet the need of the future. And the knowledge and the skills are very closely linked together. And we should not repeat what others can do better. If the students are able to get the same knowledge from internet search by YouTube video, there's no reason for us to repeat that. So we have to constantly think how we can create a value. So if you look at on my left-hand side of this screen, that if you look at the complexity, cost, and the manpower, and on the bottom, at the x-axis, you have the volume. So what we know is that a high volume, low intensity teaching, we can actually deliver from internet resources and the study guide. In the middle order, mid-volume and the mid-level complexity would be our simulation, the team-based learning, the problem-based learning, and tutorial. But we as an expert in our own domain, what we can focus on having a very highly integrated seminar, expert lecture that nobody else can deliver. But that kind of activity would be low volume, but will have a high complexity, high cost of delivery, high manpower utilization. So we need to think ourselves constantly that what is out there that students can learn much faster of the formal time on their own. We don't need to do that. We don't need to repeat that. We need to do something that nobody else can do. The Daniel Tosteson was the dean of the Harvard Medical School long years back. So there he said, this is before the internet era, we must acknowledge again that the most important, indeed the only thing that we have to offer to our students is ourselves. Everything else they can read in a book or discover independently, usually with a better understanding than our effort can convey. Very powerful. So the second point that I will talk about is that how teachers approach their teaching, understanding the context of practice. Lord Chesterfield, many, many years ago, he said to his son later that the knowledge of the world is only to be acquired in the world, not in a closet. And if I show this, this is actually what we call the ecology of the, the medical care. This was published in New England Journal about 20 years back. If you look at that in a given 1 month, if you follow about 1,000 person, 800 of us will actually have some sort of symptoms like headache, little of giddiness, runny nose, a little bit of diarrhea, a little bit of high blood pressure, and so on. If you look at only less than 0.1% will be admitted in an academic medical center. Remarkable. But when or about 1% will be hospitalized in that. But all of our teaching is, and especially the assessment, is actually geared towards that 0.1%, neglecting the vast majority of the outside. So this is what I'm saying, is that data is out there. We need to actually make sure that we understand the data and apply the data in our own practice. Otherwise, we'll be out of context. So it has to link with linked firmly with the practice. Integrating the teaching with the larger context of society is a paramount for value creation. The risk of ignoring the environment is akin to burying your head in the sand during a sandstorm. And of course, the teacher as a professional, we need to keep on learning. We need to keep on growing. We need to create new knowledge. The comprehensive faculty development, which is more important than today than ever before, empowers faculty members to excel as educators, to create a vibrant academic communities that value teaching and learning. So to me, that's actually very, very important. And again, the James Collins in his famous book, The Good to Great, actually proposed that we need to choose the person carefully. First who, then what? So that's actually very important to transform an organization from good organization to a great organization. So we need to get the right people on the team before vision, strategy, and tactics. And getting the right people on the bus and getting the wrong people off the bus, and put your best people in the greatest opportunity, not the biggest problem. This is how an organization can transform from being just a good one, passing along, to a great one. To highlight the importance of good people, if you create a 2x2, a typical, the management, the diagram, if you have a good program but bad teacher, and the bad program and a good teacher, if you ask the students, if you do this mental exercise, almost all students will choose good teacher, and even if it comes with a bad program, they will not choose a good program and a bad teacher. So that highlights that importance of being a good, or a great teacher. Of course, the other two options are, no-brainer. In a Chinese proverb, there's something say, if you're planning for a year, you can sow rice. If you're planning for a decade, you can plant some tree. But if you're planning for a lifetime, you educate your people. So I can paraphrase that. If you're teaching for a year, you can teach the students. If you're teaching for a decade, we can build a medical school and hire some teachers. If we're teaching for a lifetime, we have to educate our teacher. And I will end up by this very, very, nice quote that Christine McAuliffe actually, he was the first, the female, who was in this, and who died ultimately, actually. And he was a teacher. He was not one of those, the NASA trained, the professional aeroplane flight, fighter pilot or whatever. So before this, the disaster that he faced, one of them actually asked, one of the interviewers asked that, what do you do as a profession? So she replied that I touch the future, I teach. A very powerful, quote actually, to say that we have the power to touch the future because we are teacher. Thank you.
Very nice. Is there any question? Let's see question.
Yes, sir, there is a question.
Yes.
In your presentation, you have stressed to enhance the competency for the teachers, but what steps can be taken to enhance the competency of the teachers? Should it vary from profession to profession?
Yeah, it should vary from the profession to profession because, some competency are actually generic, like how we interact, like how we deliver our lecture, how we create our own module, how we create our questions, how we provide feedback, or, in higher education, how we mentor. So these are generic. But then you have the discipline-specific competency as well. So, like, for example, in health professional education, the bedside teaching is very important. We rely a lot on simulation-based teaching. Those are very much, unique to health profession education. But for engineering, for architect, for people who are in the economics, those who are doing field studies, they have a slightly different level of, slightly different types of competency. Now, how do we do that? So faculty development is actually a pyramidal in shape. So some part is actually depends on the teacher themselves. Some needs to be actually organized at a module level, or some can be organized at a university level. At the top tier, of course, you need some faculty who are the master trainer, who can actually be the resource person for the rest of the faculty. So there, I shared the Wilkerson and Arbier's quote. If you do a Google search, it's easy to find actually how the faculty level can be, faculty development can be conceptualized in your organization.
There is another question also, I see. Give it, please. Answer live.
Yes, sir. The question is, do the statistics that provided valid for other professions as well, or just medical?
So the statistics that I provided, actually, in a given half-hour talk, these are illustration. There are actually many more that you can actually get from for your own profession. I don't know which profession you are. So if you are doing at, say, economics, you can easily find out that actually what's the proportion of a certain population living in the ultra poor level, what's the income status has changed over the year, what are the main sources of income, what kind of occupation they're involved in. So what I wanted to emphasize is that the information is out there. We need to get those information and apply those information into our own teaching and the practice.
Thank you, sir.
I just use my own profession to illustrate. Yeah.
Sir, there is another question. Do you consider the competency of teachers or the build-up of the teachers should vary across economies?
Some basic level competency is universal, actually. There's no question about that, And if you look at that in higher education, we're actually an anomaly. No one will become a primary school teacher or, say, a high school teacher without going through some formal training in education. But we can be a university teacher or the medical college teacher without going through any formal training in education. So it's changing now, but that's been the case. So there's a universal competency that everyone needs to have, but then again, you have so much more to learn. Like, as I said, you have a blended learning. You can have the team-based learning, which is very much in now with the business education, the MBA and other case-based discussion. So there will be variation, but the underpinning fundamentals are actually the same.
Thank you, sir.
Let's see. Is there any question more?
No, sir, not at the moment. Thank you.
If audience can raise their hands if needed. Otherwise, I have a couple of questions. So, anyone there giving some? So, first of all, this is a very nice presentation and a very relevant presentation, and you are from Singapore. So it's considered to be a technologically advanced education system. And in our part, in Bangladesh, you already know that it is very hard for technology. What do you think that this relevance for education competency, how can your country is in Singapore, they are doing, you saw that there is a relevance of whole world is a place of education. If you take the education from all, closet is not some confined. And in medical, you showed that in statistics, it's a very small number, relevant number who are experiencing an experimental basis. You take the, so in that context, now technology is all over, like in Bangladesh, fourth industrial revolution and beyond, we are getting it. How you are performing there and what result you see in Bangladesh
Sure.
need to be done, or what is
I
the
don't want
advantage
to,
of also Bangladesh? We have many experience, many patients in terms of medical.
Sure. I don't want to give you the impression that we rely heavily on technology. It's actually not. There is an actually huge amount of face-to-face contact, the traditional, what you call the traditional contact. So we supplement that with the internet or the online learning. So the point that I would make is that each of these modalities actually has its own strength and weakness. And the technology can come in many different shapes and forms. And technology does not necessarily mean it's a good thing. Okay. So what we need to know is actually what is our need? What is our need? We need to go through the the same question that I said I shared, that what are the questions that we should ask before adopting a technology. And the simple technology, as I said, that it could be, now Zoom is omnipresent. We can do it at the Zoom, and we can use much more sophisticated technology as well. So what I wanted everyone to realize is that we should be the master. Technology is the slave. We should be the master and the technology is the slave, not the other way around. Technology should not drive us. And this is actually very important. So we choose the way the technology will behave with us, will behave with our learner.
The topic comes that remain relevant in a connected world. You see, sometimes we are seeing that education, mostly medical education is difficult because it's applied most. You have to give medicines and you have to see the doctors, patient, sorry, and you have to see their face. There is a emotional, there is a lot of issues.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
diagnosis is not only some numbers, diagnosis is also some environment, also psychology, all those things. So
absolutely. But then again, there are certain parts of that, that we don't need a face-to-face patient contact. Actually, we can train them without that. We can train without having the what we call a standardized patient. Actually, essentially, and I can be a standardized patient myself when we train, say, history of asthma, so that we can broaden what I wanted to say that we can broaden our repertoire of competency, and we can use technology to augment that.
Again, my another question, not question, just I wanted to that its relevance with the Bangladeshi perspective. What do you think? And also you in your prerequisite radical change in the educational planning and delivery. What does it mean? How we can do it? How you have done in Singapore, and how Bangladesh can do it?
I think like for any complex change, we need to start with the clear-cut, evidence that what actually work in a higher education, be it in a primary education, and incredibly huge amount of information is actually out there. What kind of curriculum will work, what kind of teaching will work, what kind of assessment will work, what kind of feedback will work. Incredible amount of evidence is out there. We need to have a structure to translate those evidence into practice. Okay, and it needs both a push and a pull. It needs a support from the top, but also a lot of work at the ground. So
Okay.
we can capitalize what we are doing good. We should capitalize with what we are doing good. We can see actually what is out there. And as I said, that I'm not a great fan of technology, by the way. I'm not a great fan of technology, So I will scan the horizon to see what kind of technology the human and non-human interaction is suited in our context.
That's very nice. Thank you very much. Is there any more questions for anyone?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very lively and very good space and presentation. I hope our audience, our researcher, and our academics, especially our students in this pandemic. And it's also, you say that this is, I remember that digital Bangladesh, now we are almost at par with the world. We are behind in before, but technologically, the technological support and for the communication, we are now working with the, especially in pandemic, we have seen that our classes and our seminars and our conferences are now
adoption of technology has
adoption, and we are I think in the world it complex small big populations, and all together we are in a better shape due to our technological adoption, and our students, our researchers will take it. And today's with your presentation, I hope again it will be fruitful and it will be beneficial for our academician, researcher, and students. And from the conference, as a conference chair, I thank all the participants who are listening to us and we are joined, and who will be getting this. This is a live video. The recorded video will be available for others, so it will help others to know more about your presentation. And again, thank you to Dr. Zubair, Amin, and all members who are presenting and supporting staff. Thank you. Thank you all. And
thank you, everyone.
I conclude the session, and I hope next session people will participate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm leaving.
For such a fruitful session. We will start our next session very shortly, and our next session is going to be on financial technology, fintech. So stay tuned.
Thank you, madam. শুরু হয় নাই আপনার দেরি করতে
এইটাও তো ডক্টর সাজ্জাদ হোসেনই করছেন।
Economic system person.
Again, a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all, depending on your location. Welcome to the 5th plenary session of APAN53. In this session, we will have a presentation on financial technology, Fintech. Fintech, as we all know, is a portmanteau of the terms finance and technology and refers to any business that uses technology to enhance or automate financial services and processes. Considering the rapid development of technology, the influence of technology on financial services, and the benefits that it might be able to deliver to the beneficiaries have become the burning issue. Also, it will highlight the ways NRINs can play a role in boosting the technology. I believe today's paper will be beneficial for those who are connected with financial services, people who are connected with technologies, and also for the end users. The paper on Fintech is going to be jointly presented by Professor Shibli Rubayat-Ul-Islam, Chairman, Securities and Exchange Commission of Bangladesh, and Tarique Amin Bhuiyan, Managing Director, Dhaka Stock Exchange. The session will be chaired by Professor Dr. Mohammed Abu Taher, Honorable Member, University Grants Commission of Bangladesh. Let me give you a brief introduction to Professor Abu Taher. Dr. Tahir received his bachelor and master's in management from Chittagong University in 1982 and 1983 respectively. He obtained his PhD and postdoctorate from Texas A&M University, USA. He joined University of Chittagong in 1988 and became full-time professor in 2004. Before joining in his current position, he was engaged as the chairman, Department of Management in University of Chittagong, Dean, Faculty of Business Administration, advisor of different organizations, and treasurer of Bangladesh Open University. Let me brief the structure of the session. At the beginning of the session, once the chair finishes introducing the presenter, there will be a 5 minutes video clip from Professor Shibli Rubayat, followed by 25 minutes presentation from Mr. Tarique. The floor will then be open to audience to ask questions for the speaker to answer. The question may be asked using Zoom question and answer for the chair to collect your question to forward it to the speaker, or you may raise your hand for the chair to allow you to ask the question by yourself. The question and the answering session will be of 15 minutes duration. Finally, the chair will wrap up the session with his concluding remarks. With that note, I'm going to hand over the microphone to Honorable Chair to conduct the session. Professor Dr. Mohammed Abu Taher, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear? Everybody can hear me, please? Okay. On behalf of Bangladesh Research and Education Network and myself, I have immense pleasures in welcoming all of you to 53 APAN conference, especially focused on financial technology. So far I know, this was designed to provide a platform for scholars, academia, and representatives of different stakeholders to exchange views and knowledge on contemporary issues, especially under fourth industrial revolutions. You know that financial technology working as a driving engine to provide digital financial services of banks and other financial institutions. Digital and technological advancement has given the financial service and activities a new look, and the financial activities become more easier and faster and safer. Due to digitalization of Bangladesh in early 2010, the mobile financial service has been tremendous growth in Bangladesh. Under the guidance of mobile financial service system of banks, at first 10 licenses were issued to provide the mobile financial service. Currently, the number of licenses is about 20. For example, Bikash, a subsidiary of Tarique Bank, Rocket, a subsidiary of Das Bangla Bank, Nagod, as a subsidiary of Bangladesh Postal Department, so on. The most popular digital financial system around the world are PayPal, USA. Most of the freelancers in our country has been used this digital system to receive their money. Alipay, they use in China, Patim in India, M-Pesa, that is called Kenya. This year is very momentous, especially for the people of Bangladesh, because we are observing the birth centenary of Father of Nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and also Golden Jubilee of our independence, Bangladesh, who is achieved in 1971 through sacrificing 3 million martyrs under the leadership of Father of Nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. In case of financial system, there are a lot of challenges, especially within in-house as well as that is outside the world. To cope up the financial system of outside the world, Nexus Pay has been more popular where inter-transaction is cashless. To prevent the fraud and achieve financial transparency, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchains, data analytics, big data and analytics, and are promising machine learning system are very promising, especially in the financial market worldwide. Today, we are very much honored as well as same time highly obliged to Professor Shibli Rubayat-Ul-Islam to speak on the subject matter on the distinguished speaker, and also another speaker, Tarique Amin Bhuiyan, is also managing director of Dhaka Stock Exchange. Due to that is involved in other state function at the same time, Professor Shibli Rubayat-Ul-Islam does not present his presentation directly, but he recorded presentation has been delivered today within very short time. Now I have introduced our today's speaker in brief, especially first speaker, Professor Shibli Rubayat-Ul-Islam. Professor Shibli, currently working as a chairman of Bangladesh Securities Exchange Commission. He has served as a Dean of Faculty of Business Studies, University of Dhaka, and also chairman of Southern Bima Corporation. He has been specialized in the field of finance, banking, and insurance education. He served the director of Uttara Bank Limited, SME Foundation, Community Bank Limited, Central Depository Bangladesh, and he also writes some 3 books in tertiary levels. He has been published more than 18 research publications, 3 international book chapters, and 5 international research papers. He also elected senator and syndicate member of University of Dhaka and took care of the Switzerland Bangladesh Chamber of Commerce and Industry as General Secretary. Professor Shibli also elected General Secretary of Dhaka University Teachers Associations and Federation of Bangladesh University Teachers Association. Professor, a very widely traveled, more than 34 countries. In the meantime, Professor Shibli is married and blessing with 2 sons. And our next speaker, side by side, to also introduce our next speaker, Mr. Tarique Amin Bhuiyan. Mr. Tarique Amin Bhuiyan, a professional personality, and as well as started his career as a graduate trainee of Greenlands Bank, Bangladesh. Later, he served in different important positions for more than 25 years in different organizations within the country and outside the country. He also served as Chief Information Officer of Bragg Bank Limited and founding Chief Executive Officers of Bikash, a mobile money transfer company of Bangladesh. He received 2 master's degree from one university, IBA Institute of Business Administration, MBA degree from University of Dhaka, and another one, Macquarie University, Sydney, Australia. Apart from the teaching, he received different certificates from Australia, US, and other countries. Now I would like to request to start the recorded speech of our honorable speaker, Professor Shibli Rubayat-Ul-Islam, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking today on financial technology and especially the fintech related presentation. The world is going through the 4th industrial revolution now, and this has created a massive pace of change within the business world. One such massive pace of change is in financial technologies, that is fintech. As fintech revolutionizes financial products, services, and processes, particularly in the banking, insurance, and in the capital market, with help of advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, big data, data lakes, data analytics, IoT, near-field communication, etc. With 60+ banks, non-bank financial institutions, 100+ insurance companies, and 320+ institutions within the capital market ecosystem, along with over 170 million population, there is no denying that Bangladesh and many other underdeveloped and developing countries has tremendous potential for fintech products and solutions and for fintech companies. However, in a recent study performed by Light Castle Partners, while Bangladesh overall fintech hub readiness is around 3.2 on a 5.0 scale. However, on technical ability, Bangladesh scored only 2.5, that is just midway. Given Bangladesh's financial markets, particularly the capital market, are going through a transformation process, fintech shows immense potentials for driving this transformation with the power of technology, following the path of many other developed and emerging economies. This presentation will explain 8 such fintech disruptions predicted by Deloitte that will change the WWWs, or workforce and workplace, within the financial services space that will have a tremendous impact for the underdeveloped and developing countries, including Bangladesh. These Deloitte predicted disruptions are: number 1, financial transactions will be touchless, as automation and blockchain-enabled secured financial operations will be the norm. Number 2, as touchless transaction becomes the norm, CFOs will start to own business insights as well as service. The skill required by finance professionals will change as new combinations of technology and human workforce permeate the workplace. 3, finance will go real time, as periodic reporting will be a thing of the past. Number 4, self-service will be the standard practice demanded by the customers and the workforce. Number 5, new service delivery models like AI-driven intelligent robotic process automation will emerge. Number 6, finance applications will use microservices that will enable businesses to pick and choose the microservices as required, which will challenge the traditional large ERP vendors. Number 7, the proliferation of open APIs-based data sharing will drive data standardization. And number 8, employees will be doing new things in new ways, including uses of social media, etc., some of which will make chief executives uncomfortable. Lastly, to be a successful leader in the business world, We all understand that one needs determination and tenacity. However, to learn those skills that are creating all those massive changes, creating business paradigm, specialized executive education is what a country also needs to be successful in the development of a fintech ecosystem. This is why more and more financial services executives and professionals are increasingly recognizing the need to refine and expand their knowledge if they are going to survive and thrive in the corporate world. Just after me, the Honorable Managing Director of Dhaka Stock Exchange will make a presentation just as a continuation. Thank you very much.
Now I would like to request our Honorable Speaker, Managing Director of Dhaka Stock Exchange, Mr. Tarique Amin Bhuiyan, please start his presentations, please.
Thank you. I hope you all can hear me. So thanks for introduction, and thanks for our Honorable Chairman of the Securities Exchange, Bangladesh Securities and Exchange Commission, to introduce the topic. So he has already talked pretty much many of these things. So I will just then not take much of time to actually explain what is Industry 4 and what is fintech, and then how we can relate to that to for BDREN, Bangladesh Research and Enterprise Network. So Industry 4 is where we are now. So it started with Industry 1, which was only mechanization and steam power. So that was around the late 18th century. Then again, late 19th century, we came to know what was Industry 2, when we started mass production, assembly line, and electrical energy. Then again, another almost like 100 years later, around the end of the 20th century, we had Industry 3. Many of us are still using a lot of Industry 3 as well, like automation, computers, and electronics. But today, what we are talking about, it's not 100 years later from Industry 3. So technology has spearheaded, like technology evolved so much quickly. We are already in Industry 4, and we are talking about cyber physical systems, Internet of Things, and Internet of, and the networks. So this is pretty much what Industry 4 is. So there are various research that terms what technologies should be defined as part of Industry 4. So you can have many industry talking about many such technologies, but overall what is common is what I'm showing here. So it's like autonomous robots, simulation, horizontal and vertical integration, industrial Internet of Things, augmented reality, additive manufacturing, the cloud, cybersecurity, big data analytics. So these are pretty much the Industry 4 technology. Obviously, there is another new kid on the block, which is blockchain technology. So that is also considered to be part of Industry 4.0. So how did fintech evolve? So during 1866 and till to 1967, the infrastructure that we saw in fintech Industry 1 space, and we can call it like Industry 1 and then fintech 1. So it's like infrastructure like telephone and telegraph. I'm sure those who are like a baby boomers or even Generation X, we all remember this infrastructure that was used by the financial services institutions at that time. And then during 1968 towards around 2008, when we saw pretty much when we saw Apple iPhone, during that time, the banks were using e-banking ATM, so which Generation X, baby boomers, and Generation Y are also aware of. But in the current scenario when we are talking about industry 3, fintech 3.0 or fintech 3.5. These are pretty much driven by the evolution of the mobile phones, the smartphones. And that has created many startups in their, like they had fintech technologies like P2Ps, credit scoring. And now we are talking about digital identity, big data, artificial intelligence, industry, Internet of Things, and decentralized network, which is the blockchain technology that we just talked about. So this is how fintech has evolved. So this is the prediction for Finance 4.0 or FinTech 4.0 that our honorable chairperson of the Bangladesh Securities and Exchange Commission has already mentioned. So I will not go into too much details, but I will just slowly read this one. So there are 8 big predictions that many of them have already started to happen and still happening. So the finance factory, that means that transactions will be touchless as automation and blockchain reach deeper into financial operations. Number 2 is the role of finance. With operations automated, finance will double down on business insights and service. So the thin line or the solid line between finance and the rest of the business has actually shrank. It is now become not only thin, it's thinner than thin. So that's why finance will start to get involved into business and services, while success may not be assured. But that's a prediction. But that is where the industry is moving towards. Number 3 is finance cycles. So finance will now become real time. I mean, finance has already become real time, but there are still many companies which are yet to move into real time. Periodic reporting will no longer drive operations and decisions, if it ever did though. Number 4 is self-service. So self-service will become the norm because the customers are actually demanding it, and finance will be uneasy about it. So I will be as a user from a different department, I will dictate my I will do my own transactions, even if it is a financial transaction. So that is where the finance is not only the finance department. We are talking about finance means like financial service, and the business will be a bit uneasy about this, but they are slowly learning how to adjust to this pace. Number 5 is operating models. So new service delivery models will emerge as robots and algorithms will join a more diverse finance workforce. And that is a reality in many countries. I mean, even in banks, even in Bangladesh, we have probably seen that many banks have started robotic process automation. So it's actually behind the scene. These are robots actually doing the transactions on behalf of the human, and as such, because the robots don't take any sleep, or they don't go on holidays, so they can actually do the transactions continuously, and they will come and join the finance workforce. So now we have to think about the integration of freelancers, gig workers, and the crowds. So how they will participate in this gig economy. So number 6 is enterprise resource planning, or ERP. Financial applications and microservice will challenge traditional ERP vendors. So traditionally, what we see is that when we implement any ERP solution, we actually take the whole suite of ERP solution from a single vendor. But that will change because microservices is becoming very commonplace. So I can take accounts payable from one vendor, accounts receivable from another vendor, HR, payroll from one vendor, a third vendor. I can do that. I can mix and match because these are all microservices, and it is very easy nowadays to integrate these microservices. So whichever is cheaper for the enterprise, they will go for that, and this is becoming a norm, and that has already happened, and that is bound to happen in the very near future. Number 7 is data. So I mean, data is the new oil. We all know that. See, the proliferation of APIs will drive data standardization, but it won't be enough. Many companies will still be struggling to clean up their messes because of this, like previous our involvement with the traditional technologies, we have the data has been sort of like a bit messed up. So we have to clean up those data, because wrong data means that even if we use robots, they will actually predict the wrong insight. They will give us the wrong insight. They will predict the wrong future. So number 8 is W&W, which is workforce and workplace. So employees will be doing new things in new ways, some of which will make the CFOs or the CXOs very uncomfortable. For example, we normally don't use emails nowadays when we discuss among our staff. We have WhatsApp groups or Viber groups, and we actually discuss some ideas or whatever our office related works using WhatsApp or any other chat chat tools. So that has become very common. So for CXOs 4.0, for the fintech CXOs, of course, what are the challenges, constraints, and expectations? So there are many challenges, like new technologies. There is disruptive competitors, new business models, changing CFO roles, and the new finance requirements. But with these challenges, we also have some constraints, and we also have some expectations. So the constraints are the regulations and compliance. So say, for example, for Dhaka Stock Exchange, I'll be relying on the regulations and compliance requirements by the Securities and Exchange Commission. For the banks, it will be central bank. So those will be the constraints. So we have to work within those constraints. Then there are obsolete ERP and information system platforms. And we have limited financial and human resources, limited talent pools, and aging teams. But because of those new technologies, we also have some tremendous expectations from our customers, like value. What value are they getting? So they want everything data driven. They want us to be agile, very much agile. So agility is an expectation. Scalability, we need to do more and more and more transactions. So scalability is very important. And while at the same time, they also want simplicity. We cannot make things complex for our customers. So these are the expectations that we have to run with. So how do we succeed in a industry 4.0 or fintech 4.0? So there are some plans that a suggested plan. So map out your industry 4.0 strategy, and then create initial pilot projects, followed by defining the capabilities that you need, and becoming a virtuoso in data analytics, then transform into a digital enterprise. And then actively plan an ecosystem approach. So ecosystem is actually very important. If you understand, like the Apple is more, Apple makes more money through its ecosystem than its own products, because they have been so successful. Not only Apple, even Samsung also. So they created their own ecosystem around their products. So that is what we need to do. So in capital market, Dhaka Stock Exchange, my company is a major player. So what we have to do, if we want a robust fintech 4.0, we have to create a fintech ecosystem around these Dhaka Stock Exchange. That is only when we will actually succeed. If we want to do it ourselves, it will be very difficult. So collaboration and communication is the major stake here. So what skills do we need in 2030? So there are some suggestions here from the World Economic Forum, and some also from research reports. So as you can see, that these skills, the thing that we need to understand more than these skills, whether our people have these skills, and if they don't have, we don't have much time to reskill them in these new technologies, especially like in 2030, we will need judgment and decision-making, fluency of ideas. Today's economies are ideas economy. These are all based on ideas. If you have a fantastic idea, you can come up with the technologies are out there. You just create your own startup, and you create a big ecosystem around your idea, and then you start making a lot of money. Active learning is very important. We will have to have learning strategies. Obviously, learning is very important, and that is where I am leaning towards to have learning strategies. We also have to have research, more and more research in these fintech areas. And there are a plethora of topics that we can do research. And talking about those, I will directly go into this, which is my last slide. So this is a research report, a research by around 8 to 10 researchers from all across the world. So they came up with potential fintech research topics, which could be the opportunities for BD Red. So they actually created some clusters. So red cluster, blue cluster, and green cluster. So within a red cluster, the keywords or the key technologies are like blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, entrepreneurial finance, smart contracts, security, Internet of Things, venture capital, and the financial industry. And the research streams are cryptocurrencies, smart contracts, and financial technology. You'll be very, very surprised if you, I mean, there are so many. In fact, I have seen that, especially in the European universities, there are so many research going on into blockchain and cryptocurrency. It's amazing. I mean, it's really, really amazing that there are so many research going on using blockchain technology and how we can make that technology even more fruitful and more usable to the end consumers. Unfortunately, I haven't seen much of that report in Bangladesh, but hopefully this is a pointer for BD Ren that they can actually have their say and have their mark in this area. And then in the blue cluster, these are like traditional, like, I mean, it's pure, the fintech technologies like fintech, financial inclusion, regulatory sandbox, innovation, fintech, big data, regulation, regtech. So these are like core. These are core that we all know about. But the red and green are very one is very value oriented, and the other one is very, very technology oriented. The green one includes like machine learning, deep learning, and artificial intelligence. These are the research topics that probably only those who are graduates of computer science, who has got deeper understanding of computer science, can probably do it. But for cryptocurrencies, even a business graduate with technology savvy business graduates, they can also do this kind of research like cryptocurrencies, smart contracts, and financial technology. And on the blue side, I believe it is also very important. But these are the common. I mean, if we see them, the research topics, most of the research are actually based on are actually categorized into blue. But we need more research in red and green. So, and that is the message that I would like to give it to BD Ren, that this market is quite ripe for that kind of research, especially in Bangladesh, and we should do a lot of this kind of research during the near future. So, and with that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tarique, Amin, Bhuiyan, for your nice presentation, especially because I have also learned a lot of things from your presentation, especially in the latest situation of financial technology. And last slide is very important for me, especially which are the area, especially in the fintech technology in upcoming days, to face the challenges of fourth industrial revolutions of Bangladesh. And I hope the university, each and every university, has prepared yourselves to produce your graduates in the guidance of your, that is called just like it's just work. So thanks again to our especially honorable speaker. First one, my colleagues, Professor Rubayat-Ul-Islam, she's across presentations, and also Tarique Amin for his nice presentation in the financial technology. Our honorable speakers, especially both speakers, have been discussed different issues on financial technology, especially our first speaker in his important speech, he identified 8 disruptions of financial sector, especially. And second speaker, he also identified there are a lot of challenges and there are a lot of expectations under fourth industrial revolution. And finally, in future direction of the research, especially in the fintech technology, under the guidance of the three clustered group. One is red cluster and blue cluster, and that is for the green cluster. This is very interesting slide, especially for me because I'm a teacher. I'm always a scholar. I encourage the students to involve the research work, especially in the fintech and other issues. So now the questions, the floor is open for raise the questions from our participants, those who are participating within the country, outside the country. I hope our honorable, that is called Tarique, Amin, Bhuiyan, Managing Director of Dhaka Instructions, to answer the questions raised by our participants within the country or outside the country. Please. Is there any question? Please ask to our speaker in that.
Yes, sir. There is a question. How fintech will be affected if Third World War breaks out? Thank you.
Fintech, not only fintech, if a third world war breaks out, it's so many fintech, medtech, insurance tech. There are so many tech that will be, of course, be disrupted, and they will be definitely be impacted. But we are very hopeful that third world doesn't break out, because we haven't scratched the surface of fintech. So we have so many more plans. We want to do those. So let us do those. That will be my earnest request to the world leaders, so that a third world war doesn't break out.
Thank you, sir. There is another question. Probably you know that NRINs connect the research and education institutes with a high-speed network. Do you consider that these NRINs can play a role in fintech through their high-speed connectivity?
Yes, definitely. In fact, earlier this morning, I was discussing with a tech company, a big tech company globally. So they support the startup ecosystem with their technologies, especially cloud technologies. And with NRENs and BDRENs, the network that they have created, which I understood is quite robust and it's quite vast. Definitely, there is a lot that NRENs can actually help the local fintech players and create. They can play a major part in creating a fintech ecosystem, and something that we would love to discuss. We are a big stakeholder. Dhaka Stock Exchange is a big stakeholder in fintech, and we are as we speak, there is a training program happening on fintech as well at just above on the 13th floor above me. And we are actually planning to create some sort of like a fintech ecosystem so that more and more fintech players. Of course, our interest would be the fintech of capital markets. So capital market fintech would be our main interest. But I mean, banks are there. Bangladesh Bank has huge funds. I'm sure BSEC will also create a similar fund for more and more capital market fintech to come up with. And NRENs can we can actually partner with NRENs to actually connect, do more research and education, as well as help in the setting up of the fintech ecosystem in Bangladesh. So there's a huge opportunity for BDREN.
Is there any question, please?
Yes, sir. There's another question. Is cryptocurrency a fintech? Can we say it is an Internet of Things? Shall Bangladesh welcome cryptocurrency in its economy?
Yes, cryptocurrency, while it is banned currently, cryptocurrency is definitely a fintech. Internet of Things, yes, it is Internet of Things in a sense that it is actually Internet of Money. So it's programmable money. Cryptocurrencies are actually programmable money, which is coded in a mathematical form. So it is nothing but a secure hash algorithm. Any cryptocurrency that we see, actually behind the scene, it's cryptography is involved, which is sort of like a programmable money, or you can say Internet of money. And Bangladesh Bank is already, they have a cell where they are discussing and assessing CDBC, which is, CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency. So it will not be a cryptocurrency, but it will be a cryptographic currency, but it will be a digital Dhaka essentially, but in a cryptographic form. So that is what they are currently assessing and researching. So eventually it will come. It has to come.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. There is another question, if you allow me. Do you consider that NRINs
Yes.
can contribute through awareness development among teachers and students, because NRINs are connecting the universities?
Yes, definitely. And I mean, this is actually quite important. So we would actually like to, I mean, I can say now that, I mean, from as we are a big stakeholder, in fact, the biggest stakeholder in the capital market ecosystem, and we would like to do a lot of financial literacy, especially for the students and the teachers of the universities. And if there is any way we can be of help, we are more than happy to do that. Currently, we are partnering with mainly the educational platforms who are involved within the capital market ecosystem. For example, BICM and BASM. BICM means Bangladesh Institute of Capital Market, and BASM means Bangladesh Academy for Securities Market. So these are the two main stakeholders within the capital market. So I'm not sure whether they are connected to BDREN, but I mean, we are more than happy to partner with BDREN in this regard.
Thank you, sir. Another question, how the Fintech 4.0 can have impact on the agriculture sector of Bangladesh by 2030. What do you think? Thank you.
So within the agricultural ecosystem, in fact, there is something called agri-tech as well. So because agricultural technology is also quite robust. In fact, it will be as big as fintech, if not bigger, because agriculture is the mainstream of any country. So within the agriculture side, the way fintech can help, so whether you talk about agriculture or whether you talk about medtech or agri-tech or pharma tech or whatever other tech you talk about, eventually they all actually connect to the fintech when it comes to financial inclusion and payments. So agri-tech, especially in the perspective of Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is an emerging country and agriculture is very important for this country, we also need to talk about financial inclusion of the farmers. And in that respect, fintech can definitely come into the picture. So we can actually combine fintech and agri-tech together. And I believe Bikash has already done a lot. Nogod has also done a lot. Bikash, Nogod, both are fintech companies, and they are helping the financial inclusion of those involved in the agriculture. But we need to have more and more agri-tech in Bangladesh.
Thank you, sir. If Honorable Chair allows me, can I ask another question?
Yes, of course. You can ask the question because he's a very learned person. I hope that you can ask the questions.
Thank you.
Our speaker.
Can our economy survive if we are ever left out of SWIFT systems?
That's a very tricky question. It will be difficult. But currently there are so many other payments ecosystem. We will definitely survive, but we'll have a lot of issues. Currently, most of our LCs, especially foreign LCs, they are actually they use a SWIFT system, but there are currently more and more blockchain-based platforms have also come into the ecosystem. So we will survive, but as I said, that it will be a very difficult journey. In fact, that's why we need more and more alternatives of everything. It's not about only SWIFT ecosystem. We have to have alternatives of SWIFT, alternatives of many other things, so that if one goes down, or if one is disrupted for some because of this war or whatever other restrictions, we can actually do transactions through another means. And that is why actually more and more fintechs are coming, because they are thinking that SWIFT is so expensive. Why can't we have a different ecosystem based on blockchain or some other technologies and offer the same services at a much cheaper price? So yes, the answer is both yes and no.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. We don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, no problem at all. That is correct. First of all, again, thanks to our speaker, especially Tarique, Amin. I don't know about that, but Professor Shibli details about her depth of knowledge in the particular subject over telephones, and that is for the response according that you every questions in very positively. So far I know, say for example, you know that one of the books written by Klaus Schwab in 2016, the fourth industry revolutions, you know very well. In his books, he mentioned that top 10 skills required to face the challenges of fourth industry revolutions. So our University Grants Commission now are prepared to use self-sector outcome-based curriculum to face the challenges. I hope that your cooperation is very important, because without your cooperation, especially in university industry collaboration, it is very difficult to build up these sorts of skill, especially among the graduates who basically serve the country in upcoming days. As that is called, finally, I would like to add just two questions here to your answer. First question, how fintech can create more social and financial inclusion in Bangladesh and other countries? First questions to me, to you. And second questions, what would be the challenges be implementing fintech in Bangladesh and in other countries? These are my two questions as to you to your answer. First question, how to include the social and financial inclusions in our fintech using this fintech technology, and second question is challenges.
So yeah, the first one is what? How do we include our?
How fintech can create more social and financial inclusion in Bangladesh and other countries?
Yeah, so fintech is actually a major enabler of social and health, whether you talk about health inclusion or social inclusion or financial inclusion, any inclusion that you talk about, or agricultural inclusion that we just talked about. Fintech is a necessity, because as I said, that anything and everything is related in the end, it links to money. So, and when it links to money, fintech automatically comes into the picture. So there is no denying that fintech is a major enabler of any inclusion, for that matter, any development of economic development of any country. And what was your first question? Sorry, this was the second question.
The second question, what would be the challenges implementing fintech in Bangladesh and in other countries?
Okay. So there are challenges. I think the challenges are we need more players who can help develop the fintech ecosystem. For example, BDREN. So I don't know how much BDREN is involved now in the development of fintech ecosystem, but I think there is a lot of scope for fintech development of fintech ecosystem. And obviously the second thing is money, because fintech companies are mostly, if you see all over the world, fintech companies are mostly created by the young entrepreneurs. So they are just graduated from university, or have done a master's degree in some technology like cybersecurity. They come up with a new idea after learning that cybersecurity, but unfortunately, they don't have money. So if we don't create an ecosystem of a venture capital ecosystem or an ecosystem that can be created by our regulators in terms of fintech, I'm talking about BSEC and Bangladesh Bank and Insurance Development Regulatory Authority. So if they can create a fund for fintech where they can fund this kind of good ideas, if they fund say 20 ideas, maybe 15 will fail, but the 5 ideas will give enough return for them, and that is the equation. So there will be companies that will fail, but failure is not that, I mean, something failed because something will fail doesn't mean that we will not finance it, because even despite the fact that we are failing, we still learn a lot. I mean, I myself had, before joining, I myself had my own fintech company. I wouldn't say we failed, but I wouldn't say we succeed very, very much successful either. But during that 5 years, I learned a lot about fintech, and that I can actually reuse. And many of the fintech players have actually, the fintech big shots now that we know them, they actually failed in their early years. Most of them actually have failed. But failure doesn't mean that you will stop there. I mean, you don't know if you don't try. So Startup Bangladesh is one major player that has created a good fintech ecosystem, but we need more like Startup Bangladesh so that we can have more and more fintech players in the country.
Thank you, especially Mr. Tarique and Amin for your answer my questions. Especially, is there any questions from floor? Would you like to add?
Yes, Honorable Chair, we have one more question that we missed out earlier. I would like to read that out if you allow me.
Yes.
What is the role? Thank you. What is the role of fintech in the development of capital market of Bangladesh?
Yeah, it's a lot. I would say, I mean, fintech companies can help create a huge capital market ecosystem. And in fact, as I said, that as we speak, there is a training going on. And at the end of the training, there will be a competition, of course, within the participants now, competition where they will come up with new capital market fintech ideas. And if we see that, I mean, some of the ideas are fantastic because often ideas come from the very lower level people that we normally don't talk to for asking for new ideas. So, and we, not only that, we would like to create more and more ecosystem. We are actually, BSEC and Dhaka Stock Exchange, we are actually discussing as we speak that how we can help create more fintech players in the capital market ecosystem. So we are thinking of having a sandbox so that, I mean, we can have our trading engine outside in that sandbox, and you connect with that sandbox trading engine and you do your own development and test it out. And then you talk to us. And if we see that there is something that we can help, I mean, obviously we would love to do something about that fintech companies. And I know there are many such ideas out there, but they just can't do it because they don't have access to the technology, like the platform, the sandbox that we talked about, or money. So I believe we can help with both. And that is something that we are very, really keen to develop in Bangladesh.
Thank you. Due to time constraint, it's very difficult to raise to ask other more questions. So far, now our question answer session is over. Our honorable speaker, especially Managing Director of Dhaka Stock Exchange, and also our participants, has been identified many issues in the meantime, including main causes and evidence of financial disruptions, which will enrich the financial ecosystem worldwide. We hope that Bangladesh Research and Education Network will disseminate the findings of the conference to a wider audience, including those at the national and international policy makers, to more sensitize fintech ecosystems. It also brings positive change and improvement in fintech ecosystem in ensuing days. I especially thank Mr. Tarique Amin Bhuiyan for identify the potential research area about financial technology under 3 clusters, especially red cluster, blue cluster, and green cluster. This is very helpful to conduct the research work in our future leaders, especially those are university levels or that's involved in the finance and accounting departments or other business department, economics departments. So I again thanks to our honorable speaker and also that is called Professor Shibli for his that is called a recorded presentation. With these few words, I again heartfelt thanks to our distinguished speaker, Professor Shibli Rubayat-Ul-Islam and Managing Director of Dhaka Securities, Mr. Tarique Amin Bhuiyan, for thoughtful and also our participants within the country and outside the country for thought-provoking discussions. I hope that discussion is very more fruitful, helpful, and that is called conducting the future direction in the particular area in research work. Considerable thought and ideas that have been thrown out, and the findings of the sessions will be more useful to develop fintech ecosystem worldwide. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. May Bangladesh live forever. Joy Bangla. Thank you to all.
Thank you very much.